We're at the 18th session of the Commission on Sustainable Development, which this year is considering the cross-cutting theme of sustainable consumption and production. Speaking with us today is Professor Victoria Thoresen. She is one of the Baha'i delegates to the Commission this year. Victoria is Associate Professor of Education at the University College in Hedmark, Norway. She's also Project Manager of PEARL, the Partnership for Education and Research about Responsible Living, a partnership sponsored by the EU, UNEP, the Italian and Swedish Marrakesh task forces, and the Norwegian government. She is also author of the UNEP document, Here and Now, Education for Sustainable Consumption. Thank you for being with us today, Victoria. So Victoria, there has been a lot of talk for several years now, the fact that education is one of the pillars of the transition to sustainable consumption and production. And so the question then is, if we want to talk about concrete measures and concrete outcomes, how do we achieve that? How do we change educational processes and content in such a way that it becomes transformative and can achieve the many aims and the visions that are being shared at the Commission?
Mm-hmm. Well, there are a number of things that have to be done, and some of these have been referred to in this roadmap, which is in the beginning of the document, which is called Here and Now, Education for Sustainable Consumption, which means that we have to, of course, first look at scientific research and see how that can be incorporated in education. We have to work on teacher training. We have to work on developing curriculum, either including these topics as a theme which runs through everything, or specific subjects, projects, classes. We have to work on developing creativity and other aspects of education, and we have to include working in the community, practical education. There are a number of things like that which are essential, but when you get down to what is the basic transformation of education that's necessary, I would say that there are two things. One is that education generally in the world today is extremely theoretical and very abstract and very general. It's only in very exceptional schools and educational situations that the learning is based on the individual's own experiences, their own life, and very closely connected with what's happening in the environment around them. So one of the main things that I feel is essential in approaching a kind of education which is active, practical, and inspiring is to look at where the individual is, what their life is, and then to examine the values and what motivates those individuals in their consumption patterns. To take the point of departure of understanding the symbolic value of all that we're doing every day when we run around madly buying or doing other kinds of forms of consumption. And then you can move to understanding life quality, the purpose of life in a broader context. And then you can look more closely at questions of health, safety, environmental consequences, future scenarios, global perspectives. But I think I'd like to add one more thing, and that is that there is a problem in schools today in education that we also divide things up in disciplines or subjects very much. And this is an issue that deals with our whole life, our whole world. It's very interdisciplinary, and it's important whether you take the point of departure of classes on environment or environmental education, or you take civic education and participation in society, or you take consumer education, that these are looked at together. That, you know, no matter where we begin, we can look at the wholeness of the interrelatedness of the processes and the systems that have brought us where we are, so we can understand them, use them to take us forward.
So you talk about the fact that issues related to sustainability, and particularly consumption and production, are all deeply interrelated. So how would that be woven into a curriculum that, as you remark, has traditionally been compartmentalized? How would an educator begin to do that?
Well, one way is to use the thematic approach. To say, okay, maybe we're going to talk about a glass of water then let's look at that glass of water, you can say from cradle to grave, but more than just that, we can look at it from the point of view of what does it mean to a person to have a glass of water? What happens when they don't have it? How can we ensure that people everywhere on the globe do have that glass of clean water? And what are the obstacles to that? And then develop that into an understanding of the global context, and the context which is based on a vision, or perhaps one could say basic principles. If you believe that every human being on the face of the earth is a member of your family, you wouldn't want your family to thirst, right? Or to have to drink muddy water or polluted water. So you would make an effort to learn how can everyone in my family get a clean glass of water. And in the same way in teaching in schools, if the teachers have this common vision of the oneness of humanity, then in their education, in the way they approach themes, they can help the learner understand that yes, this has to do with me, this has to do with my community, but it also, these aspects have to do with the greater society and the global community in which we're part of. So that when I, to use the water example, have taken my aspirins and I toss out the rest of the package in the toilet, and I don't realize that that then goes into the water system, goes into the ground system, again affects the groundwater, and comes back to us through polluted fish and other things, then I've lost a part of this understanding of the consequences of what my little glass of water and my little pill does to the world.